Alright, so, seen a lot of reviews going around for Callisto Protocol. Uh, Views are extremely fucking mixed. Between people being positive and people being negative, and blah, blah, blah. So, I, like many other folks who played the game, had loved Dead Space and was very much looking forward to Callisto Protocol as a sort of spiritual successor or replacement to Dead Space. Now, obviously, they are remaking Dead Space, but that's sometime next year. So, in the meantime, this is kind of a nice, well, hopefully, fingers crossed, it was a nice, uh, kind of palate cleanser or appetizer. Appetizer makes more sense. Um, Anywho, so I just finished playing it. Took me, I don't know, probably, they say about 10 hours. That's probably about where it took me to. I don't know, I wasn't keeping track. Um, but yeah, so um, the game is extremely uh, beautiful as far as like art direction goes. Um, they really polished the crap out of this game. Um, the characters look really realistic, especially when you are like wearing the suits that have the like lighted helmets. Um, it's super pretty and nice to look at. I would say it is quite possibly the best looking game I have ever seen. Um, that's that's a hard thing to say because that's a tall bar, but I can't think of anything. Nothing else comes to mind that looks quite as good. Um, Anywho, so I'm just gonna give my general review of the game. Um, I will be talking about spoilers, probably not throughout, but as I lead up to the ending of the game. Um, but yeah, I really just I feel like I need to I need to speak my piece. I'm not like a big YouTuber or anything like that, but a lot of people are dogging on this game, and I don't know. I can see it, but I don't think it's warranted per se. Um, so I'm going to go ahead and begin by talking about all the flaws and all the things I do think are wrong with the game, or think could be improved. And then once I'm done doing that, I am going to sing the shit out of the praises of this game. I guess I already touched on some of the things that I liked about it, but um, so oh, right out of the gate, I think the biggest flaw is that the story feels somewhat predictable. And others have said that as well. Um, it it doesn't like you feel like with most games like this, you're gonna have some kind of twist, some kind of psychological wow moment, right? It's almost like the bass drop when it comes to these kind of things, and it's come to be expected. I think, any kind of dramatic media piece, whether it be like Game of Thrones or like the newest, I don't know, like Halo or whatever. Like every time you're playing something dramatic that is really taking itself seriously, there's always this kind of build up to some kind of oh no kind of moment, or like like a reveal, so to speak, like crescendo. I guess I'm not really a music guy, but anywho. But this one, you kind of feel like relatively where it's going. Obviously, not everyone is uh, familiar enough with this type of media to like understand like basic story structure and like what's probably going to be the twist. There's a lot of tropes. There's a lot of retreaded, themes throughout these kind of games, and this kind of setting, I suppose I should say, because there's movies and stuff like this too. But anywho, yeah. So right away, it feels like they're throwing some trippy stuff at us, but I kind of feel like I know roughly where it's going. Okay, and then the next kind of unfortunate thing that you experience pretty much immediately is the difficulty of the game. Now, I'm sure there's going to be people who will say, oh, you just gotta get good, or you're just not that good. But like, man, I am pretty good at most video games. I would say, not to do Dunning-Kruger kind of shit, but I'd say I'm fairly well above average when it comes to most video games. Compared to the average person playing video games. That being said, within the first 5 or 10 minutes, I had to take the difficulty setting from normal, medium, whatever you want to call it, down to the easiest difficulty. And then even after that, I ended up playing around with some of the accessibility features. Auto aim, yes please. Aim sensitivity, gotta bump that up. Fucking the auto dodge feature. I honestly didn't play very much without the auto dodge feature. I can't imagine just how much harder the game would be. Up until, I would say, for the first, hour or so, the game feels really, really rough. Like, the combat is definitely difficult. Then it kind of starts to feel a little bit more comfortable as you kind of get used to it. And then suddenly the enemies get way, way stronger. And it becomes a little bit more of a challenge again. And then just as you start to think you're getting the hang of those guys, then there's just way too many of them. So now you're fighting really strong guys, and you're fighting them 2 or 3 at a time. And you can really, really like micromanage your resources really well, so that you're optimizing your build and getting the best buffs and getting the best perks and upgrades and conserving your ammo and selling what you don't need so that you can keep open space in your pack, your storage, or whatever. I have played lots of survival horror games, and I'd say I'm pretty good at managing my resources and knowing when, like, okay, maybe I have 4 health packs. I don't really need 4 health packs. I can sell one, and then I'm on my way to the next upgrade. If I have my upgrade, I'm not going to need another health pack, kind of thing. Like, really, like, thinking ahead, getting in the game kind of thing. That being said, towards the end of the game, I felt like all of the like little cheeses that I was doing and all the little like upgrades that I maybe like felt like were a little overpowered, but I was like, I'm just having fun at this point. They all ended up being necessary and more for the final boss encounter. The final boss encounter of this game is absolutely fucking nightmarish. I'm literally not even joking you when I purchased the assault rifle. That's probably about 80-90% of the way through the game. I didn't think I was going to need it. I thought this is a luxury buy, this is an indulgence, I just want to see what the AR is like. I ended up fucking needing that thing. I needed it so goddamn bad. I cannot imagine what that last fight is like if you don't have fully upgraded gun. No, not even fully upgraded guns. The fully upgraded assault rifle. Actually, I didn't even have the fully upgraded assault rifle. There's one more upgrade for it that gives it homing rounds. It's still 4,500 credits. Fuck that. I, you know, the previous upgrade before that drastically increases its stability. I'd say that's probably necessary considering just how accurate you have to be for the final encounter. Um, not terribly so, but pretty well. The recoil on the AR without the without the stability upgrade is pretty rough. So definitely, yeah. If you're watching this for advice on the game, or you're struggling with the final boss, definitely make sure you get the fucking assault rifle and get the fucking stability upgrade, and then give yourself plenty of fucking ammo, because holy shit, you're gonna need it. Well, maybe not need it, but it's gonna help. You're gonna be glad you have it. There's a lot of games like this where I feel like, I've been building up and saving a bunch of my stronger stuff, my better gear, because I'm worried that there's going to be like a really, really tough encounter, and I'm going to be really glad I have all this shit, in my back pocket. And 90% of games, maybe even 99% of games that have some kind of inventory system like this, that have like a weapon tier upgrade system, by the time you get to the end of the game, you have such a surplus of overpowered crap that you don't even end up needing most of it. A good example I would give is actually Pokemon. Um, so, and I'll be doing a review on Pokemon pretty soon here too, probably right after this one. But when you play through Pokemon, you almost always end up with max revives before the end of the game. And sometimes you only have one or two. Sometimes you have like 5 or 6. Just depends on how much exploring you do and just how good you are at, playing around, finding shit. Oh, but holy shit, you never end up using them. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where the resource is so finite that you're hesitant to use it, but then at the same time, by the time you've beaten the game, now it has no use. Now it has no value. What is it good for? Nothing. You don't even have a use for it anymore. But I'll get into that more when I'm talking about Pokemon in the next video. But that's kind of what I thought was going to end up happening with this assault rifle. I thought for sure, like, I'm buying all this extra ammo for it, and I'm putting all these upgrades into it. I'm spending all of my resources on this assault rifle, and I should be probably upgrading, maybe my battery charge on my grip. Maybe upgrade my hand cannon a bit more, or maybe look into the tactical pistol. There's two guns in my playthrough that I didn't even touch. I did not put any resources into them. And I'm honestly really glad that I didn't, because I don't think that they would have been good. Like, I'm just going to give it to you straight. The hand cannon is great for taking out the limbs of enemies. I wish I would have learned it, like, later or earlier in the game, because I would have saved myself a lot of ammo. But if you just shoot most enemies, like, right in the leg, right in the foot, it will do enough damage to completely take off their leg, and then they will be crawling. Now, once an enemy is crawling, you can just bash them with your fucking baton or step on them if you're good enough at the timing, and then they're done. They're out. Like, that is the end of the fight. It trivializes a lot of encounters doing this method. Like, if there is one strategy that I would say is, like, totally overpowered in this game, it is shooting off their legs and just stopping them. Mind you, this does not work through the entire game, and there are enemies where this is just not going to work. But for most of the standard bipedal enemies, that's going to be more than enough to take care of them. Sometimes you might have to shoot them multiple times in the foot if they're like a stronger variant or whatever, but Still, having them lose their leg and come crawling at you just to get stepped on is a lot better than the alternative where you fucking wail on them and wail on them and wail on them, and then they transform, and you wail on them and wail on them and wail on them. Well, there's 6 more of them chewing through every part of you that's not fucking exposed. Or that is fucking exposed. Whatever. They just rip you to shreds if you're super focused on just one of them. Which sucks. And is a con of this game, because the game really emphasizes one-on-one combat. Someone had said it's kind of comparable to Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, and that's not unwarranted. When you're like playing this game, like if there's an enemy in front of you, your character is kind of like ready to fucking like dodge and weave and like counter strike and whatnot, and that works fine. But for once in a video game, I've never really seen this ever before in a video game or movie or anything like that. The enemies don't care. Like, that you're in like a little one-on-one, like mano-a-mano duel. They will just start chomping into you and fucking slapping you around and fucking kicking you and exploding and shooting at you and biting. You know, like, they don't give a shit. So, you know, that's real shitty, because in the later parts of the game, like, you can throw the fucking one-on-one shit out the window. There ain't no fucking way you're fucking one-on-oneing, you know, fucking... The thought of someone beating the final boss with melee... I can't even imagine. That would be absolutely ludicrous. I'm sure people will do it, because there's people that like play video games like this, like it's like just a challenge, like a fucking drum set the final boss, like just lunacy. But I'm telling you right now, for the average gamer, you're not beating that final boss with melee. You're just fucking not. And if you do, you're gonna make that fight take so much longer than it needs to. That fight's gonna be ludicrously long. God, I'm terrible at reviews. I'm just talking about the game. Anywho, sound design. Oh my god, the sound design for this game is so goddamn good. And I was talking about cons, wasn't I? Cons. Some of the enemies, their AI is less than spectacular. They're kind of stupid. Other times they are exceedingly intelligent, almost like concerningly so. It was there's an enemy in the game that like really likes to do like hit and run tactics, and it like camouflages itself and shit like that, and like goddamn, like they're super hard to fucking deal with, and they're super annoying. I discovered, however, that if you just use the grip, you can fucking just grab them and fucking pull them back to you, and then just fucking lay into them, and like it's counterintuitive. Because, like, usually you want the enemies to not be right in front of you. But this game focuses so hard on melee combat. You will be doing melee, I would say, for a good 80% of the game. And I would say for the first 50% of the game, it's going to be, like, more like 90-95. Like, you're not going to be shooting a lot. You're not going to be using your grip a whole lot. And the grip thing is it feels cheap sometimes, like when you throw an enemy off a cliff or when you like hit them against a spike wall or something like that. But there's some fights where that's fucking necessary. Like, you know, if you don't fucking thin them out and like deal with like 2 or 3 of them, like with some really cheap methods, you're just gonna get actually like legitimately overwhelmed because there's just too many of them. Anywho, Yeah, so sound design. I'm just gonna get into the. I'm just gonna talk about the game. I'm not gonna try and stick to a format. The sound design is amazing. Both me and my partner were both playing the game together and like talking to each other while we were playing it. Um, and we were both playing with headsets and using Dolby Atmos. And oh my god, like the only other game I've really played where I felt like they truly like made good use of um, that software was Resident Evil 2, the remake for it. That game is so fucking good, by the way. Um, that's another just like really great video game. Um, but I feel like at the time Dolby Atmos was kind of in its infancy. It wasn't quite where it needed to be. Um, as far as like just how good it was. Um, or more realistically, I don't think games were using it enough or like really focusing on it and implementing it well. Callisto Protocol fucking nailed it. Like it's so nice to have good audio software and use a good quality headset and just fucking like listen to all the like really fucking nice like sound effects and shit. There's like squelching with all the like moist organic material. There's like fucking like nice clinking and clanging of like the metals like um clanking against each other and whatnot. Um when you're taking melee hits or you're giving melee hits, it feels like a really like visceral bruising kind of sound, like a meat on meat kind of effect. Even when you have armor on, like you can almost tell there's like a little like thud or like a mechanical kind of tink when it's like something hitting your armor or whatever. Um, yeah, the sound is just so good. It's so good. Um, and like I said, the graphics, the lighting, super awesome. Um, the voice acting is pretty good as well. Um, I I don't think I had any problem with the voice acting. Nothing was like particularly cringe. Um, I guess I would say that the guy who plays one of the main antagonists, one of the like security officers or whatever, the guy who plays him is the same guy that plays Starkiller in the old Force Unleashed games. And that guy, like, he just loves to scream. I feel like he almost overacts a little bit. It works for this game because like he's playing like a fucking like security officer who's just power tripping. Um, and so that's fine. It actually makes a lot of sense that this guy is like just totally like full of him fucking self. Um, but anywho, yeah. So there's not really any bad voice acting. Performance wise, we did run into a couple issues. My partner had her game crash a couple times, and that like really sucked. And then there was a point where we both got to the same spot, and consistently, time and time again, like we tried it like 6 or 7 times actually. Um, this one specific action, which was required to progress, would actually crash the game and send it back to dashboard. Um, it was really fucking shitty. But fortunately, they already had an update. They already had a 13 gig patch to ideally fix it. Now, when I jumped back in, it loaded up one of my earlier saves for some reason when I hit continue, and so I just went back to the menu and then I booted up my most recent save, and then I was fine. Like, wasn't any issues after that. My partner, on the other hand, she could not get it to work. Um, Eventually, after a whole bunch of like trying things, I think she went back several checkpoints and then was able to progress and get through it. Um, but it was looking pretty bleak. But that's we were playing the game day one. Anyone who has played video games in the last 5-10 years knows that when you play a game day one, you are kind of accepting some risks because a lot of the times there are things that just got missed. Um, Obviously they got to test these games and do all their troubleshooting and whatnot, but they can't catch everything. It's just the nature of the industry. Having however many testers you hired, which you had to pay, testing the game versus millions of people all playing the game at once, like those people are gonna encounter things you didn't think were even possible. Um, and there's no way that your hired tester could have found the same issues. It's just unrealistic. So a lot of people dog on game companies these days for these rough launches or these rocky first starts or whatever. But like, don't judge a game by its first 72 hours or whatever. Obviously, the quicker they can respond to these kind of things, the better. But I would say, realistically, if you're being fair to the game developers and the industries, and the game industry, rather, don't expect a new game to be in a playable state until at least, I would say, a week or two after launch. That's another thing I'll get into with the Pokemon review. But yeah, you gotta give developers a little bit of time right away to fix whatever issues there might be, because there's always going to be something. Games are never going to run perfect on day one. That's just the nature of games. That's the state of our industry. But anyway, overall, the game is kind of short. That's unfortunate. However, it scratches an itch. Games like Dead Space, like Gears of War, like Resident Evil, those kind of like, over the shoulder shooters with like a gory kind of dark twist to them, they fucking dominated the video game industry from like 2004 to like 2012. There was tons of other games that were doing well and that were successful and whatnot, but like the third-person shooter genre really fucking thrived in those years. And then all of a sudden, once Visceral Games went under, or rather when EA pulled the plug on them, we just fucking lost all of that. We still have Gears of War today, but Gears of War is a fucking shell of its former self. You get a Gears of War fan and a Halo fan in the room and have them argue over which one of their franchises has died the hardest. It is amusing, probably. But, anywho, yeah, we haven't had anything like that in a long time. They just kind of died off. It's kind of like... this might be a bad example because a lot of people didn't like this game, but Yooka-Laylee. Yooka-Laylee was a platforming game that got kickstarted, actually, and ended up getting made on Xbox. I think it was on other platforms too, but it was at least on Xbox. But it sought to revive the platformer genre. More specifically, kind of sought to like bring back the spirit of old games like Banjo-Kazooie. And I think it had a number of the developers, the original developer team, on the actual development team. I don't think the game did terribly well, but for a lot of people who grew up on those kind of platformers, whether it be Mario World or, like the old, Banjo Kazooie games. There was so many games like that back then. They were just like really, really good, really, really popular, really, really well known. And then again, like the genre just kind of disappeared. No one was doing it anymore. And it. Sorry, I keep yawning. I kind of have to wonder if it's because the industry kind of gets oversaturated with that kind of stuff. So the weaker ones like just have no chance of succeeding. But it's always strange when it just stops working entirely, or when they just give up on it entirely. Um, but anywho, yeah. So overall, I'm really happy with Callisto Protocol. I could probably talk on and on for hours and hours about the game. Um, it's like I said, it's unfortunate that it is as short as it is, but like I said, it scratches the itch. If you want a game like Dead Space, it's a game like Dead Space. It's not quite as long, it's not quite as involved, but for them to even try this in today's current gaming climate, where there is nothing else like this right now. Um, it's brave and it's bold, and for them to get a foothold and continue to make games like this and continue to make them longer and better and more involved, they have to shoot their shot with something like this, and they have to use it to get a foothold because it's a brand new developer who has not made any other games to my knowledge. Um, so, working with veterans in the industry, but it's a new developer. They have no new assets. They have no, whatever. I'm sure this engine for this game had to be fucking made from the fucking ground up. Um, I mean, well, I guess it's on Unreal Engine, but I digress. You still have to make things within the Unreal Engine, so it's a rocky start. But anywho, I am sure if this game does well, which I got a feeling it's not going to, then what we see in the future will be even better and even bolder. Um, but that reality might never come because there's a lot of people that are just really upset with little gripes here and there. Like I won't say that the things people are complaining about are unwarranted. I just think that a lot of them are things that we should already expect in the industry. Um, the dodge mechanic is a little funky. A lot of people are just wondering why we can't just have a dedicated dodge button. I like the like weighty feel of like having to engage with the combat. For the first half of the game, I would say, for the first half of the game where melee is still relevant, it feels good. Then towards the end of the game where you got like six dudes all attacking you and you got to try and like figure out the dodges on that, or like dodge one on one, it looks and feels weird. If it's strange to be like martial arts dodging like six enemies who are all grouped up on you. But anywho, all right. I think that's probably going to be my review for Callisto Protocol. Um, I really liked it. I think people should give it a shot. If you like survival horrors, go ahead and grab it. Maybe you wait for a sale. I don't know. Whatever. There is supposed to be DLC coming with the season pass. So, maybe just wait till that comes out so you can get like a better experience or whatever, or maybe you can just get it all in at once. But overall, I think it's a great game. It's just not as much of a great game as I would maybe like. But that's going to do it for me. So now I'm going to move on to the Pokemon review. So I will catch you in a minute.